Welcome to Between Dimensions with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey. And I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker hosts. As collective ascension guides, we are always navigating our 3D and 5D worlds. In other words, we're between dimensions, learning to embody our multidimensionality just like you. During Between Dimensions, you get the best of both worlds 5D conversations in a 3D format. Tonight, we are joined by Brooke Alizabeth. Brooke is a Blue Lotus facilitator and psychedelic practitioner. And we are going to be digging into Brooke's spiritual journey as well as her experience with the spiritual side of psychedelics. Welcome, Brooke. We're so happy to have you for this conversation tonight.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I'm so happy to be chatting with you, and I've been really looking forward to this.
Yes, we're super excited to dive into this because we don't have a ton of baseline knowledge about this. So I think we'll start with the softball question, which is going to be the spiritual topic question. So anyone tuning in live, you are welcome to answer this question in the chat. If you're watching the replay later, you can put it in the comments as well. The question is, what is one simple everyday ritual that you can do to feel grounded and centered?
Mm. My most recent, over the past few months, has actually been coming back to like structured prayer, which was not a part of my practice the past couple years. I was like, oh, I'll meditate or I'll do this and that. But I came back to structured prayer twice a day because I find that it creates discipline, creates focus, and even on days where I'm like, I don't want to do this, like I'm feeling a little bit lazy. I know that, like, yes, this is my time to connect with source. And then I'll add a little bonus for people, get outside. Like, get outside if you are feeling sad. It sounds so simple, but it's easy to hold yourself up. So, like, get outside, get your feet on the ground, and you're gonna feel good.
That's cliche. I was going to say going outside as well. It's so easy and it makes you feel really good. But
Yes.
obviously, like, you need to have great weather for that. So, being in a winter state, it can be difficult. So I recognize that my grounding practices are probably different in the winter months than they are in the warmer months.
Yes, it is getting warm though, at least here. I know I'm also in a winter state, but it's the sun is out. I'm like, hallelujah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think the first Between Dimension episodes that's actually with both the guest and us and based in Wisconsin. So that's kind of a first ever. Yes.
Yes.
By chance, this wasn't planned. If anyone's wondering, we had no idea where Brooke resided, okay? I was going to say, I think my answer to the question is a little bit, maybe it's weird, maybe it's not. But I have this, I got it as a gift for Christmas actually. And it's like this like cuticle balm that is made with patchouli essential oil. And I know some people are like, "Ugh," when I say that. That are like, I hate patchouli, but I can't help it. I love it. And it's definitely one of my essential oils. I'm obsessed with it. And actually, I weirdly find it really grounding to just like open the tin and like take a really big deep inhale of it.
Oh my, I know exactly what you mean, and I can't get on a little like aside of this because essential oils, like you're saying, patchouli, frankincense, whatever it is, they are so grounding. Like people are sleeping on essential oils, just taking like an inhale of it. They are wild. Like buy some essential oils if you are watching this.
Absolutely. And don't you make because you've been spending time in Egypt, correct? So don't you make like your own charged rollers?
Yes, I wish I had some of them near me so I could like show you. I have them on my Instagram so you could see them there. But essentially, I got some oils, some pure plant oils from Egypt, sourced in Cairo. And I was like, how can people connect with the land here in Egypt without actually traveling? Especially right now, people are very nervous. And so I took them to each of the pyramids and charged all of the oils with the frequencies of the pyramids and of the land. And so I have frankincense, myrrh, and jasmine, which is really beautiful because jasmine, like Egypt has the world's largest supply of jasmine. So yeah, and then I have a couple extra little like papyrus. I have some daffodil. So if anyone wants
Mm.
any oils, definitely let me know because I use them every day.
That's really cool. I had no idea that they had that much jasmine. Jasmine's actually like an underrated one too, I feel like for me. Like I have a roller where I put like two jasmine buds in it. And it's actually okay, this is like TMI, maybe not TMI. I call it my bad bitch blend. Because it's got like pink pepper, it's like pink pepper and like there's like the jasmine buds. There's a whole thing going on. It's called that for a reason, okay, everybody? It's like come on, it's a confidence booster. But jasmine is I feel like an underrated one.
Yes, it's very uplifting, very joyous. It can help you connect like to also your sensuality, all sorts of things. So every time I smell it, it's just like it feels like it's lifting me up. Yeah, it's a beautiful flower.
So I think we dive in now to the interview questions. We love an origin story. Lacey and I, uh, we always like to start an interview this way, going back to the start of your spiritual journey and what led you to psychedelics and where you are today.
Okay. I will do my best to keep this like confined because like with life, there's so
Yes.
many different things that happen. But I grew up here in Wisconsin in like a small, very small town, Wisconsin, Christian family. And when I was younger, I had some pretty like traumatic events. Like my father died very traumatically. And after his death, there was a period of time where there was actually a lot of like darkness, kind of like dark energy. I did not understand it at the time, and there was nobody really in small town Wisconsin that understood anything. Like I didn't tell anybody about it, maybe a couple of friends, but they were like, "Oh, that's really weird," you know? And I was like 12 years old at the time, but I remember kind of seeing an entity come around my bed and it wouldn't leave me alone, and it got to the point where my mom actually took me to a priest because we were Christian. We would go to a Catholic church.
Wow.
And so the priest prayed over me. Like it was so intense. It was such a strange thing as a child to have that. And I didn't have any more, like interactions or situations with whatever entity was there. Now, to me, I was like, I don't understand this. I'm not going to talk about this. It closed me off very much spiritually and made me very fearful of things like Ouija boards and all of the different spiritual things because I had been playing with them when I was younger and then this had happened. And I will also say at a young age, I don't know if either of you, because you're very like cosmic, have experienced this. But I remember being on the swing set, like in elementary school, and I would have these moments where it's almost like a glitch in reality or a glitch in the matrix where I would look around and I was like, wait, what am I? Who am I? Like, what is this place? What? And I never really thought anything of it, but it happened throughout my life. And so I grew up, I wasn't super connected to Christianity. I went to a Catholic college, so I loved learning about theology, even though I wasn't Catholic myself. And then I went into the military. And so I served as a military officer for a few years. Um, During that time, it was quite difficult for me. I felt like I was losing the essence of who I was. I got very disconnected from myself. Mentally, I was struggling. Like physically, I was struggling, everything. And around this time, when I was deciding to get out, I came across psychedelics. They actually kind of found me, like mushrooms kind of found me at a time where I was completely like disassociated from who I was. And that kind of led me on a journey of starting to work with psychedelics, realizing, okay, this is not what I was taught in small town Wisconsin. Because I thought, if I had to compare, I thought mushrooms were like heroin or like crack cocaine. I was like, this is stay away from me. I don't want anything like this. So, yeah, I went on this journey with psychedelics and I used them quite intentionally, but it really started to open up and kind of break me open spiritually. And so since then, over the past few years, I've been trained as a psychedelic practitioner. I also work with like different plants and Blue Lotus, and my spiritual awakening has really, like if I had to put a time frame on it, it's been probably really only the past 3 or 4 years. Very accelerated. So I've had to learn how to hold a lot and integrate a lot within a very like short relatively short period of time. Yeah.
Wow. There's so much for me to, okay, there's so much to go into here. Um,
Yes.
so first of all, glitches in the Matrix, whatever you want to call it, like that is definitely like Lacey and I had those experiences. I always describe it as I would see these visuals of like almost like zooming out, like zooming out and seeing Earth and just being like, but I don't understand like how this was created. Like I would
Yeah.
Mm,
actively think that as a kid.
Hmm.
And so and it was like beyond like you know how there's kids where they're always like why is like they ask why and every time a parent like it's just like this constant thing. Like that wasn't it wasn't the same as that. Like it was like a different
It was internal.
questioning. Yeah, it was
It
like a
was
different
internal. We actually never talked about this with each other until like after our Starseed awakenings, because I used to call it like, I mean, like now as an adult, I call it like I was mind fucking myself. Like I would like zoom out and I would be like, I don't understand how I got here and why I'm here and who made us and who made Earth, and like traditional definitions of like religion and like definitions of like God creating Earth, like that didn't make sense to me as a kid. Neither did the Big Um,
Bang Theory though. Like I was like, I don't think this is what happened. Like,
same.
and I used to like lay in bed at night and like get on this loop with it, and I would have to stop because I was like, I don't understand how I got here, and it would like freak me out a little bit. Which is now I'm like, oh yes, you were a starseed. Like, oh yes, you were just different, like that kind of thing. So yeah, very interesting that we had that same experience.
Hmm.
I think too, like you talked about, so I'm curious where you are at now in your spiritual journey when you reflect back into that time period, experiencing like the passing of your father and experiencing like even reflecting on seeing like this shadow move by the bed and like the priest blessing. Do you still feel that was a very negative energy, or do you feel like you didn't understand what it was?
I still think it was a negative energy for sure. The way that my dad passed, it was by his own hand, like in our home, and I was there, and so like there was just this, and his state leading up to it was very strange, and so it just definitely felt like there was this really heavy, dense, not good energy. Like if you can think of Slender Man, like imagine him walking alongside the bed. So you can imagine the fear I had as this 12-year-old girl, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and everything in my room would be foreign. Like I couldn't find the light switch. I would be hearing children outside and there was nobody there. So it was I couldn't make sense of this as like a 12-year-old. And of course, um, before that had happened, but like before, I don't know if my dad had passed yet or not, but my friend, her cousin, had gotten her a Ouija board. And so we used to play with it because we're like, this is like so fun. Like, ooh, you can talk to spirits. And I remember having my fingers on the little triangle.
Planchet.
Planchet, yep.
Yes. And I was like, we were like, are you a good spirit or a bad spirit? And I remember it moving around like to yes, no, and then a circle and it stopped. But I remember my fingers were like burning. They felt like they were burning. And I was telling my friend, do your fingers burn? And she said, no, no, they don't. So these experiences I had early on in life and then what I experienced with like this sort of entity made me very closed off. Like when I saw anything to do with a Ouija board, anything with darkness, like even tarot cards terrified me. Or like I didn't want anything to do with it. Crystals, don't believe in them, like completely closed off. So I had to work through a lot of honestly fear when it came to my spiritual awakening. And um, God brought in, like, Source brought in the perfect people to help me actually, like, support me and navigate through that.
So interesting. I mean, the Ouija board thing is like, whoa, that blows my mind only because I like that like Ouija boards terrified me as a kid. I've never used one until this day. Which is, I mean, we are like we always say we had paranormal origins. Like that's what we love. Like we ever since we were kids, like it was like take us to the ghosts, we will talk to the ghosts, like we are obsessed with it, right? So we weren't afraid of spirits, but the Ouija board itself, we recognize that there is a different invitation that happens with a Ouija board.
Hmm.
So I'm like
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by that. Like you described. I'm
Find
not
it.
surprised. Like in a way though, I'm like when you said Ouija board, I was like, oh, naughty, naughty. Like that
Mhm.
probably wasn't good for what was going on at the time energetically.
For sure,
Yeah.
I think especially as a child who is in a vulnerable state where their father had just passed away, like very open energetically. And then, of course, at that time, you don't know any sort of spiritual protection, spiritual hygiene, really even intention setting. We're just like, let's see whatever spirit comes through. So it's like
So true.
opening a portal to literally whatever is waiting to come through. So I don't know that Ouija boards are inherently bad, but I think if you don't have all of the necessary protection, all the things around it, like it can be bad from my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because it's probably just another form of divination, just like a pendulum
Mhm.
or
Hmm.
dowsing rods. I think of that kind of stuff, so that makes sense. Um okay, so like digging into the psychedelic, I said it like it was a pill. I can't believe I just said that. Um okay, your journey with becoming certified as a psychedelic practitioner. What I guess can you give us like a 101 on like what kind of psychedelic? I don't even know the right
Yes.
wording. Like, yeah, like what kind, what type? I don't know the right wording to say, but like give us a little like 101 on that.
Yeah, so I remember at the time when I wanted to become trained somehow with psychedelics, there wasn't a whole lot out there. Even just a few years ago, things have really um, rapidly developed, even over the past few years. And so I waited, and then I found a certification program through Third Wave. It's called Psychedelic Coaching Institute. Paul Austin runs it, and I got like a full body yes. I was like, yes, this is it. So I was trained on all of the classical psychedelics. So you can think about mushrooms, MDMA, LSD, DMT, all of those, trained on all of them. Now, what I will say is I have never been super called to work with synthetic psychedelics like MDMA, LSD, and those. I've been really called to work with mushrooms, the earth medicines, and that's nothing against synthetics. They have incredible like healing potential and capacity in many different ways for a lot of things. But just me personally, my journey has been with getting certified and working with mushrooms, so psilocybin mushrooms. And then on my own personal journey, I've also sat with ayahuasca. So I don't do anything with ayahuasca. That is a whole other thing where like you need to be really studied. That's like a really big dedication. You go with the indigenous people and that's a whole thing. So that's part of my personal journey, but mushrooms are more of like my professional background.
I think, okay, this is really interesting. When you started listing them off, this sounds dumb, but like I didn't even realize that like LSD and MDMA, like I didn't realize those were even really considered part of like part of, I mean, I knew they were psychedelic, but I didn't really consider them as part of like any kind of spiritual work. Um,
Hmm.
I I guess I just think of mushrooms right away or ayahuasca when I think of like spiritual psychedelics. So that makes sense when you talked about like the earth medicines. Like I think that makes a lot of sense, and maybe I inherently was already doing that or associating that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I think a lot of people with LSD, it can be very spiritual. I think a lot of people, from what I've heard from friends and just other people, it's definitely connecting with like, the higher source of consciousness than just you. And then MDMA is, I don't know that MDMA is like super duper spiritual. I don't have the personal experience myself, but it's really good for like relational work
Hmm.
with people and people that have a lot of deep trauma. It's good for that. So,
Have you tried all of these like through that coaching, like through your learning, did you have to like work a little bit with everything or just focus on the ones that you for sure wanted to learn to use with others?
so I learned all the theoretical stuff about the other ones, but I knew that I didn't feel called to work with them. So I was like, well, I'm not going to offer this to other people because I strongly believe if you are offering guidance or advice or, like especially facilitating with any medicines, you need to be working with them yourselves. So I have all of the information, even like ketamine, I have the information, but that's great if at some point I start working with it and, want to work with others. But mushrooms were like, yes. And that's kind of why I got into wanting to learn more and go through a program with mushrooms because that's what really called me into this space.
And okay, so let's dig into the mushrooms then. Um,
Hmm.
we had a science teacher that once told us, this is true story, true story, high school biology. Yeah. I'm not gonna say his name, but I wanted to, but I'm like, no, that would out someone.
It's not necessary.
The point of it is he used to say, mushrooms, man, they'll take you on a religious journey. That's what he used to say. He also would play the guitar and sing John Denver, so that was another thing that he did. But the point of this story is I am curious what your experience with mushrooms is. Like, what was your first time actually trying that like?
Okay, so I'll do two parts to this because the first time I tried them, like I said, they had kind of found me. I was with a friend. We did not know that like how really or what to do. We had never had mushrooms before. So we went out and we ate like a big meal, like big chicken sandwich, the waffle fries, the everything. And then we decided, okay, we're gonna like have these mushrooms. And so a like couple hours goes by and nothing has happened and we think like this is really strange. And at the time, I was in a much different place in life. We're like, let's go to the rooftop bar, right? So like when people ask me about my kind of my origins with psychedelics, I would love to say I started off really intentionally and I really didn't. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't. And so I remember we went to the rooftop bar and we were sitting and all of a sudden I just felt this really deep love within me. And I went down to the bathroom and I remember vividly looking at myself in the mirror. And this was at a place where I had felt completely broken and disconnected from myself. And I looked at myself and it was like my alter ego staring back at me. And she was like, "You are awesome." Like I was like, "You are awesome. You are amazing. You are beautiful." And I just felt so incredibly empowered, like something turned on in me. And so the second time that I decided, okay, like I want to work with this without eating a big chicken sandwich and waffle fries, um, that actually happened to take me back to the death of my father and like all of this stuff that I had been holding in. Like it took me back into the house, back to the place, and I just like blacked out crying for a long time. And luckily, I had my partner with me, and he was a wonderful, wonderful space holder. And that's one of like the biggest things when working with psychedelics is having people there that you trust and that can support you. And that's when I realized, this this is not what we've been taught. This is not some party drug. This is not like I had this incredibly healing and cathartic experience with mushrooms. And you talking about like your science teacher, was it your science teacher, I think you
Yeah.
said? Yeah, it was like they'll take you on a religious journey, man. For a lot of people, they do. They can connect you, to this unified sense of consciousness, or there have even been studies done with like priests and leaders from different religious organizations that they experience that, their faith on a deeper level. And so for me, I had an experience where I saw it was like Jesus and then Source. And the way that I was understanding it was like Source was breathing through Jesus, his mouth was open, and it was like this breath going through him, and it was also this breath going through me. And in a sense, I wanted to be like, this means we're all Jesus. That's not what that means. But it was essentially teaching me like we are intertwined with source. The very breath that we breathe, like, is God, is source. Like we are divine just as God is divine. We aren't God, but we are like these individual expressions. And how beautiful.
That's amazing. I think that's a great imagery that they gave you on the interconnectedness of all beings, because we always say we're all just like little fragments coming off of source, whether whether people like that or not, right? Because there's people that are
Mhm.
like, I don't like this person. I'm like, well, there's probably something for you to learn there because we all came from
Mhm.
source, whether you like it or not. um yeah, I think that's really so. I personally, I feel like I don't know anyone who's actually had a first experience with psychedelics that was like intentional. So like I'm not surprised by that at all because I feel like most people I've heard talk about it are like, yeah, and then I was a teenager and it scared me and I did this and like I wasn't ready for it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I do think I am curious if using it in a healing capacity is very different. Like if setting intention
Mm.
before that kind of experience would completely change it for you rather than just being like, I'm gonna pop a shroom in. So intentions, but also like ritual. Like, how does that influence your healing journey?
Intention 100% is everything. Everything. I will say preparation before someone goes into a psychedelic journey is arguably like the most important part of a journey. So what does that look like? Asking yourself, why am I sitting with this medicine? What am I looking to get out of it? Some people might go into, especially for the healing aspect of it, and they might think, oh, this is going to fix everything. No, mushrooms are very honest. They show you sometimes what you don't want to see. Um, you have to sit with a lot. You have a lot of embodied experiences. So mushrooms show you a lot about like, let's say joy, for example. You might have the embodied experience of what it feels like to feel pure joy or pure grief or sadness or excitement or love, all of it. And then maybe if we get to talking about integration later, it's like you have that felt experience. So then outside in your daily life, you know what that feels like. You can learn how to connect with that in daily life. But the preparation aspect is really important because especially with mushrooms, like I always say mushrooms have a consciousness. Like they are connected to the mycelial network that runs all around this planet. It holds all of like the ancient knowledge, like the earth knowledge. And so when you sit down and you intentionally say like, what do I want to get out of this experience? What is it that I'm seeking? Like, what do I want to dive deeper into? The mushrooms usually listen. They might not show you in the way that you expect because they're like little tricksters. And they have been one of my greatest teachers, but intention is definitely everything, especially if you want to have, a psychedelic experience where you're not just perhaps all over the place. You don't have any direction because an intention, it isn't an expectation. It's not like, I want to experience XYZ, so this is what is going to happen. No, it's more of an anchor. It's an anchor for you to come back to in your experience, kind of weaving everything together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even like when you're talking about the consciousness of mushrooms, like it makes me think of like the fairy rings and
Yes.
like it's often a symbol, right, of like that fairy realm or like a different interdimensional being that you could be making contact with. And so I totally could see like the trickster energy coming in there.
Yes.
So are there common reasons that people turn to psychedelics? Like, is it like, I'm curious, like, if there's like particular ones that are good for like specific things people want to work on, or if there's any kind of patterns to that.
Yeah, I think at least when people, in generally, I think when they approach psychedelics, I can't speak for everyone, but especially with a lot of the research that's coming out now, I think a lot of people are turning to mushrooms for more of like the healing capacity of them. I think people hold on to a lot, or people who are feeling disconnected from themselves, they don't really know what they want. They might have woken up and been like, who am I? What do I really want? Or maybe they've just gone through something really difficult, like in the past. I mean, there are so many reasons. I think that people become curious about them and feeling called to them at the time that's right for them. And for some people, that's never. Because I was thinking a lot about leading up to this conversation. I used to be in a spot where I would really glorify psychedelics. I wouldn't tell everybody, like, you should do mushrooms, but I was in this like glorification, like, yes, 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 yes. I think that are psychedelics, because with the spiritual aspect of it, some people might come to it for the spiritual component too. And I don't think we can ever or should ever try to force some sort of spiritual awakening, but we can have the want inside to experience something bigger, more spiritual, than we've currently experienced. But I was just thinking about with spirituality, some people will never feel called to psychedelics, and they are not needed for a spiritual awakening. They are not needed to have spiritual experiences. There are so many other avenues, but for some people, this is an avenue in, and it might be for a specific period of time. It might be once in their lifetime. It's different. It's different for every single person.
So one of the things coming through right now that I have to ask about is, okay, so when you're working with mushrooms, like what let's talk about microdosing because I don't know that I understand like the term microdosing as
Okay.
opposed to like I don't really quite get where that plays into things and what that means even. And all I have in my head right now is that Jonas Brothers line.
Oh,
Like microdosing. Yes. That's what I have in my head. But yeah, like that was what was coming in, and I'm like, okay, like I don't like where does the microdosing fit in? And what's the difference between microdosing and like doing some kind of like journey or experience? Like I'm not sure I understand the difference.
Okay, yeah. So there's a range of dosages. I mean, with all psychedelics, but with mushrooms, from a tiny little amount up until, 5+ grams, which that's like a heroic dose, massive, right? And there's everything in between. So, like
heroic
a mac,
dose.
yeah, literally, because I mean, that you can cause quite a bit of, I mean, that's when ego death typically happens. Like people can experience a lot of destabilization. So that's a lot to take, but every person is different. Their sense I've actually never taken 5 grams myself. I'm very sensitive, so I've never needed that. I've like blasted off a little bit further than I wanted to without even going there. But when it
Love
comes
the
to Mike,
blasted off, the
yeah,
blasted off herb. You're using great language to describe it.
yes. Yes. Uh yeah, I prefer a more grounded approach now, and that's where I think microdosing is so wonderful for, because when you're doing a macrodose, especially 1 or more grams, there's something called like a, you can say it's like a museum dose or a hiker dose, which is like under a gram, where you're still a little bit altered, but you're not too much altered. But when the idea is when you're doing a macro dose, you are entering usually a very altered state of consciousness. Now with microdosing, that's typically like 50 milligrams to like 200 to 150 milligrams. So for me, typically my sweet spot is like 100 milligrams. And with clients, that's where I always been like start low, go very slow. With microdosing, you are not like entering an altered state of mind. Your perception is not altered. You're not going to have any hallucinations or anything like that. You might feel a little bit more just aware of things, connected to your body, aware of your emotions. You might feel a little bit more, just a little bit more uplifted, like a little like oomph or boost, but you're not altered in any way. And microdosing is really, really wonderful for people who are wanting to make change in their life because our brains have the capacity to form new neural connections. And what microdosing does is you're taking these small amounts, you're on a certain like regimen for how many times you're taking it a week and for how long, but it's a structured, specific period of time, typically, at least I mean, not everybody follows that, but like if you were to do a protocol for it, you would. And you are like, if you've heard about neuroplasticity, it's essentially that's your brain's ability to form the new neural connections. So when you microdose, you're increasing your ability to form new neural connections, which how beautiful, right? You're able to learn faster, you're able to create new associations. It's just really good, like your brain, your cognitive function is like amped up a little bit. And so it's a way to create change without it being so like abrupt, like a macro dose. It's like boom, there it is. So I've really loved microdosing. It's very soft, it's very impactful, and it helps with all sorts of things. I saw the other day there was a woman who's paraplegic, so like she's paralyzed, her legs are completely paralyzed, and she started microdosing and she's able to move her legs like with the
I
help of
believe
micro.
it.
Yeah,
I
I mean
believe
she's
it.
not like moving them a whole lot, but like they're twitching. So yeah, incredible medicine. Hmm.
that's really interesting. I also think you know, I had a friend that did some microdosing, and I remember her telling me that she said she just felt more like self-observant of
Hmm.
like removing some of her ego and being able to like observe things more. Um I was going to ask a question about, oh, duration. Like, so is there like a recommended schedule in which you would microdose and use that kind of thing? Or is it like, you know, like, is it something you do every day? Is it something you do every week? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, there are different, I guess, schedules that you could use. Typically, it's like 3 to 4 times a week, so you're not microdosing every single day. Reason being is because you build up a tolerance and you just want your brain to have that like little break. And so you're doing it usually 3 to 4 times a week. It's in the morning. I have like a whole microdosing guide on my Instagram that's free. People can download it to read like basically everything that you would need to know if they want that. But for the sake of the episode right now, yes, I would recommend like a minimum of 4 weeks is that, but like 6 weeks to 8 or 12 can be really great. And the reason why doing this in like segments is so helpful and important is because you can evaluate yourself at the beginning, again going back to intention setting. Where am I right now? What's my intention for microdosing? What am I wanting to explore more? Getting a baseline. And then at the end, you're able to see, like, okay, here's where I am now. I'm going to take a break, not microdosing at all, and how am I operating without any medicine after this? So intention is still just as important for microdosing. And I will say we're forming new neural connections, right? But people have the choice of what they're actually having be connected. So if you have super bad habits, that you're like reinforcing during that time, probably not the best. Like you have to be really aware of what's going on, like what your intention is. And you can reinforce bad habits just like you can reinforce, I shouldn't say bad, maybe like habits that don't serve you rather than habits that do get you to like the person that you want to be.
It's incredible. I mean, even the stuff you shared about like the new neural pathways, like that is incredible. So I can imagine like from an integration perspective, I mean, I kind of see it as like a way to merge with your future self, so to speak. Like, who do you
Mm.
desire to be, right? And so, as you're using this and going through this process or this protocol, I mean, I'm curious too, in your experience, have you felt like energetically it's helped you merge, like from a quantum or energetic perspective, do you feel like it's helped you merge into like that state of being for your future self or for a different timeline quicker?
Oh, for sure. Because I think a lot of this stuff, even now about I don't want to say manifestation, but just like change in general, like becoming your higher self. It's you being that person now. It's you taking the actions that actually coincide with who it is that you want to be. And so when you're doing microdosing and you have that extra support, and if you're doing it in a way where you're actively integrating, you're reflecting, you're doing it structured, like when I've worked with clients, meeting them every week or every other week and reflecting, okay, where are we at? Where are we going? What is your visualization for where you want to go? Like, what's the gap and how do we get you there? It, I feel like once you do that, it's easy to have a roadmap for how to actually be that higher self that you want. Like you said, like jumping timelines. Yeah.
I love that. So, a lot of the work that we do with Twin Essence is focused on mission and purpose in this lifetime. So, I'm curious what you consider your mission and purpose.
Mm, I think a lot of people probably would think like, ah, this is ever evolving. And I will say for me, it is ever evolving, especially at this period in my life. But broadly, I feel like my mission and purpose is somehow being a bridge in between the seen and the unseen. So I went from a time where I was like really in the 3D, being in the scene, and over the past year, I went really deep into being in the unseen. And now I'm like, okay, how do we make this grounded? How do we connect, with the 5D, with the unseen while doing it in a grounded way? And I'm a projector in human design. So I've really been like looking and leaning into that, but definitely the bridge aspect of like finding the balance between the two myself and then helping lead and guide others into, living and embodying the same.
I love that. I mean, we always talk about bridging because we do 3D and 5D work, so it makes sense to us.
Yes.
And I didn't know you were a projector. I was going to ask you that too. I was going to ask, what are you in human design as we were
Yeah.
talking? That's so funny. Um, yeah. Okay,
I
so where do we
think
want to go?
I would like to just talk a little bit about Blue Lotus because you are a facilitator for that as well. So can you just give us um like the basics of, well, I mean, even talking about like how you found Blue Lotus and like how you started to facilitate those experiences.
Yes. The same, I hate to say this again, but it's like Blue Lotus kind of found me. She wasn't something that I was entirely seeking, but Blue Lotus is a flower native to Egypt and other places, located in the Middle Eastern area. But I like to say she as the Blue Lotus, she is actually a water lily, but we just call her Blue Lotus, and she used to grow in the Nile and huge part of ancient Egypt, like in temple rituals, everyday life, medicine, everything. If you go to Egypt, if you even just look up photos, you will see the blue lotus everywhere on all of the art, on all of the carvings. She is everywhere. So very important, right? And I went to Egypt last April, which that seems honestly like a decade ago at this point, but I went last April, started to feel very connected to Blue Lotus. And I actually have the flowers with me so I can show you.
Oh.
Because what I originally thought was Blue Lotus, and I love to set this straight for people just so they have the knowledge. A lot of people will see this flower, they buy it as Blue Lotus. It's usually marketed as Blue Lotus. As you can see, the company that I got this from, it says Egyptian lotus, but it's not. It is a blue lotus. It's beautiful in its own right. It's an Asian lotus, and it's really good for like dream work, relaxation, all of the things. But when people are wanting to work with Egyptian blue lotus, so this is called Nymphaea nuchali, and this is Nymphaea cerealia, the Egyptian blue lotus. So you'll see it's really
Oh.
light blue. I just want to tell people that. So when they buy it, they're like, okay, this is what I'm getting.
Tourist trap.
And
No.
I think people just like, you don't know what you don't know. And I started diving in really deep. So I started working with this flower myself. I think all plants have spirits, and so hers is one that's it's like a cosmic motherly spirit that helps you quiet your mind and really tap into your body. It helps just like clear the noise. And I started working with her. I did a dieta, which it was a couple weeks of like eating a very specific diet. I was drinking the tea every day. I was sitting in ceremony every day. And literally during this period of time, she gave me the instructions on like what to eat, what not to eat, how to go about a ceremony. All of that was just getting channeled right through me. And I love looking back at my notes because I'm always wowed at like, how did this come from? Just me laying and drinking this tea. But I realized very quickly that this is a very beautiful ally when women want to work with their wombs or just become more in touch with their body because a lot of us women, we think about our wombs as these like inconveniences, like, oh, that it hurts me and this and that, but it's actually something to connect with. And it's like a cosmic portal. So I started leading Blue Lotus ceremonies, which were so beautiful, and hearing women's experiences about them connecting with their bodies. Everything from like women falling asleep and having very deep rest to some women being like, it felt like I was on ayahuasca because they had sat with that medicine. I was like, that's extreme, but um, everybody has their own experience with this flower, and it's not psychedelic. It can be psychoactive, but super soft and beautiful. Um, as I've been spending a lot more time in Egypt and in Cairo, I've loved connecting with this flower more. So I recommend if anyone's feeling called, feel free to reach out to me and I can point you in the direction of like where to source it and all of the things.
Very, very cool. I didn't know anything about that, so I was like, wow, okay. But Yeah, I think that womb space work is pretty underrated.
Hmm.
'Cause I
Well,
used to hear it and I used to be like, I'm not a mom. Like, I don't need to do
yeah,
womb
yes.
work. Like in my early spiritual awakening days, it was like, womb. Why would I need to do womb work? I'm not carrying a child. Like,
Yeah. But what people don't realize is we're not just able to birth children. We're like birthing timelines, we're birthing creations. I mean, that whole area is connected to creativity. Like it's so sacred. And it's funny that you said, like, I'm not a mom, you know. And oftentimes in these spaces, especially spiritual, it's easy to get caught up in like, we want to ascend, we want to like be in the cosmos. But what about descending into our bodies? Our bodies are like antennas to receive. So when you descend in the meditation I lead, it's like descending down into the womb. It's so powerful, and it's something you can do on your own, which is amazing.
yeah, and I think that's a good point because like you can't bypass like the 3D to ascend. Like
No.
we're always
Yeah.
like, and you can't like one of our big things is like there is no like transcending like your physical form. like
Hmm.
like we don't know how like I'm like I don't even know how else to say that. Like there are certain things that it's like no, you just learn to work with it. Like you're not like dissolving your ego and dissolving any shadow you've ever had in your life. We're like, no, you have to learn how to work with all of these parts. It's what's what ascension is. It's not the buzzword of like transcending everything. I'm like, otherwise you wouldn't be here anymore. Like that would look like
Right.
death on earth. Like you wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. And I think everyone who goes, I don't want to generalize and say everyone that goes through a spiritual awakening, but I feel like there is that period for a lot of people where you just like leave F the 3D. Like I want to be having these crazy
Yeah.
cool galactic experiences. But when you get to the point in your spiritual journey where you have to really start integrating and start embodying, like, because what good is it having all these experiences if you can't embody it and actually bring something forth in the 3D? Then
Mhm.
they're just experiences.
Yep. It's the recognition of like being able to hold all of it at once, but integrate it
Hmm.
and like why we're on Earth in the first place. Like so that's why
Right.
Lacey and I always talk about like New Earth isn't a new separate planet that we're all like changing forms to. Like you know what I mean? It's a shift in consciousness and frequency, but like we still exist in the 3D. Like the source
Hmm.
still incarnated in the 3D for this very reason.
Right. And I'll
Um,
say, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I'll just say something that's been really interesting for me this last time in Egypt, because I've been there 3 times in the past year. The first time was very, very cosmic. This last time was actually connecting with the local culture. And the religion there is Islam, which is like grossly misrepresented in the West. I cannot believe like how really deeply ingrained we are, like deeply programmed we are. But I think this last trip there was really, really grounding for me and like opening up to learning about religion, which I know most people in the spiritual space, myself included, like you want to shit on religion, be like, religion, rules, bad, like we're free, you know? But I've really enjoyed learning about religion more, especially returning to like Christian teachings, because everything's connected, and Islam too. I'm realizing how it's helping me actually embody the things that I've experienced and bring them into the world. So,
Very, very cool. But
Yeah.
it is part of 3D programming. Like there are major like conditioned I mean, but we talked about that earlier, right? Like growing up thinking mushrooms were like crack and
yeah.
like cocaine. Like you're like, evil mushrooms. Like I had to deprogram myself to understand that ayahuasca was plant medicine and not a drug.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like because it was like you grow up hearing these things and it's like it's the bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's the same with certain religions and different programming that are pumped into us.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, I think let's transition over to the cosmic mail, the questions that have been sent in. I feel like you answered this one, but what is your favorite psychedelic or earth medicine to use?
think it's safe to say mushrooms. And if it's not psychedelic, I'm a advocate of Blue Lotus. Like she's my girl. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and I was gonna say too, like, hmm, even as you're talking about it, like it's such two different energies, like the mushroom
Mhm.
energy versus the blue lotus.
Hmm.
You can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you okay, I think you kind of alluded to this, but we didn't dig into it. Have you experienced ayahuasca before and what was that like?
Yes. I've sat with ayahuasca twice, and I will say it is an incredibly powerful medicine. And I want to touch on this just because I have the platform to talk about this right now with the two of you. I think there's ayahuasca has become very trendy. And I just want to say for people, if you are feeling the call to it, then absolutely like explore that. Really make sure that you have good facilitators. Really make sure you do the preparation, really ensure that afterwards, after your experience, you have a support system, you have someone to help you integrate, because it is an incredibly powerful medicine. I went in thinking, I was like, I'm ready for the healing. Like, grandmother ayahuasca, give me, I literally, my mind was like, give me all you got, which I was humbled beyond belief so fast. Um, the first night was very difficult for me, and it was like she was take so far down like in my mind. And I remember she said like remember who you are, and it was this booming, but I it got so intense that I had to tell her enough, I can't take anymore, because she was showing me like different patterns that like
Oh,
rumination that I would do, and she turned up the dial, and she's like, this is what you're doing to yourself. I could do like a whole episode on this, but and then the second
ooh.
night
We
was
might
like
need to do part
very,
two with that. We might need a part
I
two
know.
ayahuasca experience with yours because
Yeah.
I'm very like this is interesting.
Yeah, the second night was kind of like part two to a play. Like part one didn't make sense without part two. They were hand in hand, and overall such a beautiful medicine. The spirit of grandmother ayahuasca will actually come in and check on me during like larger dose mushroom sessions or ceremonies, as she's like, hey, you're like doing that thing we talked about, you're like doing that again. So yeah, I want to encourage people, if you are interested in ayahuasca, take your time, do that, like you'll know when it's time, and really vet the people that you are going to sit with, because it's a deep experience, and if you don't have the people to support you, it might be a lot more challenging.
That makes a lot of sense. Where did you do ayahuasca?
So I actually sat with ayahuasca in Minnesota. There is a group, it's a like 501c nonprofit called the Luna Wolf. And they are who I sat with. For my first time, it was exactly what I needed. Um, I don't know how things are there now. I don't know that I would sit with that particular group again. Maybe I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think it's worth saying it on the platform. I don't know if I would sit with them again, just because I don't know what, um, with what facilitators and stuff are there anymore. But I didn't do it in Peru or, in an indigenous place. And there's part of me that kind of wishes that I would have done that.
I think so. I don't think that was bad to say because I feel like as we change and evolve, like we outgrow things, and sometimes it's like that's not
Yeah.
what I need anymore. Um, and that's kind of relates to the next question because it was asking about are there
Yes.
specific locations that can
That's what I was getting at.
influence the medicine or the experience or the psychedelic experience? Because um I know you were talking a lot about doing like working in Egypt, doing different work and ceremony in Egypt, but like I know like Peru is often associated with ayahuasca as well. And I'm
Hmm.
curious how the location might influence the experience because I feel like if I were to do it, I would want to go like very traditional, and I
Hmm.
don't know that I'd want to do it in America.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has their own preference. I think the location probably does create, like, it does affect it, right? I think the facilitators in their background with the medicine, I mean, the one that I sat with, he had been with, I think, over 20 years. Like, he had been working with this medicine and studying it, like, went and trained with traditional shamans. So I think it just depends on the person. And I think from an accessibility standpoint, some people feel like they don't want to travel that far. But there's kind of a whole discussion around that, around taking the medicine and colonization and people who aren't indigenous that are serving it. And that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah, I think we've seen some of that conversation.
Yeah.
Um, um, Okay, so has travel influenced what earth medicine you're drawn to?
Travel. Mm. I think Egypt for sure. Just because that's a land where like you don't need any other medicine besides just being there, quite
Oh, I'm
honestly.
told.
Yeah, but for mushrooms, I think mushrooms not so much. It hasn't influenced me, but definitely on my path to working with Blue Lotus, being in Egypt did feel like a, like a pivotal point for me to kind of go down that path, which I didn't expect at all. I was like, what is this flower?
I love that. Two more questions. Is there anything you recommend doing? You might have kind of already covered this, but like doing to prepare for using any kind of psychedelic.
Yeah, I would do your research. Like there are lots of resources online now, and especially even with the microdosing, if you go to my Instagram, you can find a guide there. But for larger dose experiences, you really need to prepare. You need to get a good understanding of your dosage. Never take like way more. Like you can always take more, but you can't ever take less. Like once you are in for the ride, you are in for the ride. So start low and go slow, especially if you've never worked with psychedelics before. Even if you have someone there that's able to support you. There are a lot of spaces now where you can go into a ceremonial setting or work with a facilitator. So there are lots of different ways. I just encourage you if you're feeling called, like really do your research before just jumping head first in. If you're looking to do it in a therapeutic way. Because even if you're not doing it in a therapeutic way, there have been plenty of times where I had low doses of mushrooms and I was out camping, like with my friends, and that was just as profound as the other ones. So there's not one right way to work with psychedelics, in my opinion.
Oh, I think that's a hot take. I
It
like that.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nice. Last question, and this one came from Marley and I, but I saw your story and you were talking about being out on a walk and wanting to work with functional mushrooms more. And my question was, like, what is a functional mushroom? And like, how is it? What makes it functional?
Yes, yes. So you guys have probably heard of like lion's mane,
Yes.
chaga, reishi. All those are all considered functional mushrooms because they have insane like medicinal and therapeutic benefits. They have adaptogens, so good for your brain and your nervous system. And so I've been super interested like in the story that they're talking about. I found turkey tail outside after I was like, God, surprise me, and I really want to work with functional mushrooms. I just think that I've spent so much time being like psychedelic mushrooms that working with functional mushrooms alone, if you're just looking to have more clarity, better health, a regulated nervous system, good immunity, all of the things, start working with functional mushrooms like the lion's mane, the chaga, the reishi, the turkey tail. I've just been taking it for the past few days while I've come back home to the States, and I feel so clear. I have so much more energy. I'm more productive, and I'm not taking any psychedelic to do it. So, in that story I mentioned, there's been a little shift with psychedelics where I don't feel so called to work with. It'll definitely always be a part of my own path and perhaps working with people on microdosing, but um, functional mushrooms are underrated. Like, add it to your diet and it's gonna help.
Awesome. That's good to know. I think there's one other thing I was going to ask. I was going to ask, since we're reaching the end, like, what do you offer and how can people work with you?
Yes, so my offerings are shifting at the time, because I'm not super based in the US at this moment. But for Blue Lotus, I am open to book like ceremonial experiences, whether that be I've done private or if it's a group ceremony. Especially, I'm really actually opening up to being like a guest facilitator for retreats. So if there are any retreat facilitators that are thinking Blue Lotus sounds like a great addition, I'm happy to come and facilitate on retreats because I love them and they're so transformational. In terms of the psychedelic aspect, I'm not working with macrodosing at this time, more of just the microdosing. So if people are wanting guidance on even just like curious about it or like what would my intentions be? Where would I start? What would my dosing look like? How long should I do this? I have very structured, intentional microdosing containers that help you go from like start to finish in whatever you are looking to transform or, change in your life. Like you're talking about creating the timeline shift or being one person to like your higher self. It's helping to close that gap to start acting as if you are your higher self. So then you are.
Awesome. And how do you recommend people reach out to you?
Yes, please reach out to me on Instagram is the preferred way. I think I'm doing an overhaul of my website, which I gave my website link, but on my Instagram or my link tree, I think my email address is on there. So, but Instagram is honestly the best way right now with the travel that I'm doing.
Sweet. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure you check out Brooke and connect with her over on Instagram. Her Instagram should be linked in the video description below. I believe her link tree and email are as well. I don't think you put your website, which is okay if you're changing it, but the
Woo!
link tree will always be able to like ever evolve with whatever you change anyways. So
Yes.
everything is linked in the video description below. And if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe on YouTube. You can also connect with Lacey and I on Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok at Twin Essence LLC. And those of you that are looking to work with Marley and I one-to-one, we always recommend you start with that twin magic reading as the foundational beginning of your journey, which actually we still have a flash sale going on for those right now. So those are 50% off right now with the code May50. I'll put that in the video description, but once the spots are gone, they are gone at that half off price. Otherwise, we recommend checking out the Starseed Portal membership. We have a free trial for that right now. You get your first month free. You can check it out, see if it's the space for you, and learn more about ascension and connecting to your Starseed lineage. All right, thanks all. We will see you next time. And our next guest is going to be Chris Fleming, spiritual medium, paranormal investigator. We are going to be chatting all about paranormal and near-death experiences. That's going to be on May 12th at 5:30 p.m. CST. Thanks, everyone.